This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our main website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. X-Zone Nation, if you want to hear radio as it was truly meant to be, especially in the daytime hours, if you're tired about all the old humdum news, sports, who's going out with who, and all this useless chatter that goes on, check out my buddy Ed Till, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. right here on the Starcom Radio Network. My guest this hour is Peter KLING. He's considered to be the Einstein of biblical prophecy, and Peter KLING combined his scientific and biblical knowledge to uncover the mystery that religion has tried to keep hidden for over 2,000 years. Well, joining me now to talk more about the world that we live in what I call KLING's view, is my friend Peter KLING. And Peter, welcome back to the X-Zone, my friend. Great having you back with us.
It's great to be here, Rob. That was interesting. I kind of have to chuckle at that intro.
Why?
KLING's view.
Why? It's your viewpoint.
You're 100% correct.
Yeah.
But the reason why I chuckle is that soon everybody's going to see it and understand it.
Yes, but you, my friend, are the optometrist that made it all possible.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
It's always great talking to you, Peter. I understand the Pope was at the UN this week or last week.
Well, actually, no, not this week, but he's coming.
Oh, he's coming, is he?
Yeah, and you see, it's all the timing of this, which is all very interesting. And it's got me more than surprised, let's put it that way.
Why is that, my friend?
Well, you know, when I look at biblical prophecy, and I've been I started my research over 35 years ago.
So you started it when you were 3 years old, okay.
4, but close.
4, I'm sorry.
I came to the realization that if we are the generation that's going to live through Armageddon, or that we are targeted,
right,
there has to be scientific evidence thereof.
True.
And so when you go look at the scriptures, there has to be scientific evidence within the scriptures that we are indeed living in these last days of what they call Armageddon, and or the last days of this system of things. Mm-hmm. Not the last days of Earth, but the last days of this system.
Oh, Mother Earth is going to survive us all.
Oh, please, it'll be here to time and death. Nothing to worry about there.
That's right.
But this system has been artificially imposed upon us. Now, okay, so let's look at this book that the church used to burn people at the stake for reading up until the 1500s.
Are we talking about the Sears catalog here?
Yes.
Okay.
And when you look at it scientifically, it starts off with essentially it's an alien record of human alien interaction. Or I should say it's a human record of alien human interaction over the past 6,000 years. And it starts off that way and it ends that way. Now, the interesting thing is where you really start to pick out the scientific evidence is in Genesis, the second chapter, the 21st through the 23rd verse. And this is where God says, it's not good for the man to be alone. I'm going to create a helper for him. And so the account says that he causes a sleep to come over the man. He opens the flesh, he removes a rib, and he closes the flesh over, and he makes a woman out of the rib. And then he brings her before the man, and the man says, at last, this is flesh of my flesh and bone of my bones. Guess what? This is the first clone. Eve was genetically engineered from Adam, and the account is right there in Genesis. We could never understand that until the 1960s because we didn't even know DNA existed until 1955. Now all of a sudden everything changes.
What would have happened if God would not have taken that rib out?
Adam would be running around here on this planet all by himself.
Yeah, exactly. But I often wonder if Adam had any idea what he was getting mankind into.
Whoa, that's a good question. As Dr. Mikio Cock would say, that's in philosophy down the hallway. So I started looking for the scientific evidence and everything. Now, I had already had education in the scriptures, not religion. I was told to stay away from religion and government. Why? Interestingly enough, now we can prove historically that all religion and all government have their start within what is known as the cradle of civilization, or the Fertile Crescent, which dates back to the Sumerians and the intervention of the Anunnaki. Whoa, aliens again, interdimensionals. Anunnaki literally means those from whom heaven came. So, I don't care where you want to go. Now, a lot of people have said, okay, well, the Bible's been all tainted and there's no truth left. It's just a book of nice stories and so forth. But the Sumerian text, wow, Zechariah Stitchin translated all this stuff from us, and now we know that there were aliens that came to Earth and that they gave us religion and government as a way to rule the masses. And we've been living with that insane asylum ever since. Now, the message in the scriptures is totally different. About 2,000 years ago, it talks about this guy, Jesus Christ, who comes to Earth.
Yeah.
He's born as a man with perfect human DNA. There's an interdimensional, says, hey, Mary, guess what? You're pregnant. She didn't even know it at the time.
See what liquor does?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. There's nothing like some good old Kentucky bourbon in a spaceship. You can get a girl to do anything you want.
Do you remember that show, Married with Children?
Oh, absolutely. I love that show.
Al Bundy?
Yeah.
He said, I think he asked Bud, Bud says to Al, where do children come from? And Al says, 2 horny kids with a 6-pack.
There you go.
Yeah.
And, statistically, I wonder what percentage of the population that falls under.
That's scary. That's a scary thought, Peter.
Yeah, I had an English teacher that used to complain about his students leaving the evidence of their love on his bushes. But whatever.
Hence, I'm going. All right. Hence the phrase bushwhackers.
I suppose. I don't know. Boy, did we go down a path here.
How did we get from aliens to bushwhacking?
Well, that's pretty much what happened to us. We got bushwhacked. When you look at the account, seriously, the human race was kidnapped. It was kidnapped and our DNA was destroyed. It was damaged. And I had a conversation about this very thing with someone today. When you look at our DNA, you see 2 strands and a little notch in the middle and 2 more strands coming out of that little notch. Well, what would happen if our DNA once upon a time was connected and it really looked like the symbol for infinity?
Wow.
Now, what's on the end of our DNA are telomeres, and the telomeres dictate our age. The more telomeres you have, the longer you're going to live.
Yeah.
That's just a matter of fact. If you're blessed with an overabundance of telomeres, you're going to live a longer life than somebody who has shorter telomeres. Telomeres are like little plastic things at the end of your shoelaces to keep them from unraveling.
Mm-hmm.
And every time our DNA divides, a telomere comes off. So it divides a telomere. You lose these telomeres, and all of a sudden, all the telomeres are done, come off, and your DNA starts dividing and falling apart. And guess what? We die. Yeah. But now, what if the DNA was connected, and every time it replicated itself, it just created another infinity sign? Because our DNA separates at the middle. We know that.
You'd live forever.
Yeah. The DNA would continue to replicate over and over and over again. So now the question is, was there a virus within that fruit that contained these telomeres, which all of a sudden they ate the fruit, the virus went to work, it found our DNA and cut it in the middle and clamped on telomeres? Ooh. Prove me wrong. You can't. Oh, that's impossible. No, it's not.
Nothing's impossible.
Yeah, and that's a logical explanation to how we go from having perfect DNA that'll continue to replicate itself to having DNA that falls apart. That's where the Einstein comes in. You see, somebody sits around all day and contemplates the multiverse. Normal people don't do that.
So do you think that this hijacking of our DNA was done on purpose so that we would not live as long as the early prophets in the Bible?
Rob, I'm going to let you answer that question yourself. 100 years ago, hardly anybody believed in aliens. Everybody believed the Bible was gospel. God's book.
Yeah.
No argument.
Nope.
Evolution, even Darwin thought was a theory, and he believed in a creator. So how many generations has it been over the past 100 years where our perception of the world around us has changed 180 degrees, where we believe in aliens, we don't believe the Bible's true, and we have no use for a God, but we love the I want it now atmosphere that we've grown accustomed to become or to live in, at the total control of the suppliers. How did our paradigm change so drastically where everybody believed in God, nobody believed in aliens? To the last 3 years ago, the statistics that I came upon, 61% of the people believed in an alien life form, 53% believed in God.
Well, that's because all they had to do was turn on their TV and see Alf 5 nights a week at 5:30 in the evening. It was a great show for supper time, but you could never see God.
Yeah, well, there you go. You got Star Trek. Boy, they make 24 episodes, 23 episodes, something like that, and it's been a legend. It changed the paradigm of people's thinking.
I think modern technology also did that, and once again, you could attribute that to Star Trek.
Let's look at modern technology for a minute. Now, just a little over 100 years ago, we couldn't fly the distance of the wingspan of a 747.
True.
And if you are a conspiracy theorist and believe we never landed on the moon, then forget this next comment. But how did we go from not being able to fly the distance of the wingspan of a 747 to putting a man on the moon in a matter of 60 years?
I think man's ingenuity, or humanity's ingenuity. Sorry, ladies, I did not mean to leave you out of this conversation. I think that we have been selling ourselves short for many years, and what I've seen myself, Peter, is that more and more people are working together on problems instead of little cliques here, there, and everywhere.
Well, for the first time in 4,500 years, Rob, we all speak the same language. It's binary.
Right.
And so, you and I could actually not know English and be speaking totally different languages, and yet we can have a translator, a digital translator in between us that's translating back and forth into our own language.
Yeah.
So the language barrier is not there anymore. So there's so many things that have just focused us, where these last 100 years have been so intense, where essentially for forever, since time immemorial, we relied on horsepower. And then in basically 50 years, we went from horsepower to gasoline power, and then to atomic power, and now we're looking at the ways of twisting the universe.
These certainly are exciting times, Peter. There is no two ways about that. But I read a statistic yesterday that more and more people are watching biblical shows on TV than ever before.
Yeah, there's a general consciousness. There's a general awakening.
Yeah.
And what they're seeing is telltales of biblical prophecy. And they're saying, oh, look, and they've got an idea, and there's a consciousness, but they don't know exactly which way to go. And so to have, an expert who has been examining this stuff, it's really, this has been my life. This has been my life. When I was writing Letters to Earth, You Can Survive Armageddon.
Great book, by the way.
Thank you very much. I asked my mother, I said, Ma, you explain my life to me, because I can't explain it. And her comment was, I don't know. You've always been my problem child. And I've got a brother and two sisters. Their life is nothing like mine. The rest of my family, their life has been nothing like mine. I'm a throwback somewhere. Oddly enough, my father's family were involved in the Reformation against the church a long, long, long time ago. I don't know what to say. I was already on my path when I found this out.
Yeah.
It was a cousin in Europe who did our family history and found out that my grandfather's mother, her whole family, immigrated from France during the French Holy Wars. So that they were undergoing direct persecution of the church.
I think it's super when people ask questions. I really do, and I think that what we're seeing now is that more and more people are looking at that giant onion called history and pulling off each of the layers of the onion, because within the onion is the truth. I used to be a Boy Scout. My uncle was the Scout Master. My dad was the Assistant Scout Master, and I got to go to Scouts every Friday night. And there was a game that we played where somebody would start a story, and it would go through the troop. And by the time this story got back to where it started, it was totally different. But yet there was the piece of the truth in that story. And that's what I think there is in the Bible. Am I right or wrong?
There's actually more than a piece of truth there, Rob. When I started my work, I said, okay, let's forget about everything that I was taught. Let's just look at the scriptures through scientific eyes.
Right.
And instead of arguing, evolution versus creation, let's look at the account and let's look at the fossil record, because it's hard to argue with the fossil record, right?
True. I agree.
Now, what makes more sense, that it just happened by itself, or that we were genetically engineered? Especially when you've got two ancient accounts, one in Genesis and one in the Anunnaki text, that both involve extraterrestrial beings genetically engineering us. That's the historical record. The Anunnaki say, we created you from lower life forms.
Yeah.
The Bible says that we were created in God's image. Now, let's look at our physical being. Our physical being is dictated by the planet itself. If we had more gravity, if there was more mass to this planet, we would be shorter. If there was less, we'd be taller. If it was an ocean world, we'd have fins and gills.
Yeah.
Depending on the planet, depends on what we would look like. But where does it say our image comes from? When you read the account in Genesis 2, it says that Yahweh blew the breath of life into the body. And so the soul had entered, the thing that separates us from all other life forms on this planet, the ability to have free will. We are not dictated by the change of the season. We have engineered the planet, unfortunately, to its own detriment. We can plan our future and decide what we want and control our destiny. Animals move with the weather patterns. They move with the time of the season.
Well, I don't know. As I get older, my friend, I find that when it comes to wintertime, I kind of head south.
Yeah, well, there you go. we came. Now, here's the great thing. What they have found is that within our DNA, within the human genome, you can take one strand of our DNA and recreate all life on this planet. That is scientific fact. Here's another scientific fact. When we sleep at night, and our brains reach the level of 7 hertz per second,
right?
When there's not too much disturbance in the magnetosphere, every mind that is on the planet can connect as long as it's vibrating within those parameters. So we literally, and this is scientific fact, this is not theory, this is fact. So we can literally connect with every other mind on the planet.
So we become a universal consciousness.
And now, what did you say earlier? That people are looking at the scriptures more? There's more and more TV programs about the Bible?
Right.
Guess what? There's more and more TV programs about ancient aliens, about modern aliens, about Area 51, about everything to do with aliens. Interesting, huh? Are we talking scriptural references to aliens?
Well, you know what? Back then, Moses, he wrote the book of Genesis. You know, I really think that what they did, they wrote based on their limited knowledge of the world in which they lived.
Ah, yes. That was one of the parameters.
Yeah.
That was one of the parameters I used. I said, okay, let's look at the Bible. There's 2 situations I'm dealing with. One, it was written by men who didn't have our technology.
Exactly.
That's the biggest one. The other one that I came up with is, okay, even though I don't understand it all, and even though it's recorded and you get into these and that, who begot whom, there's a reason it was put there. So I figured that everything that was preserved down to our day was preserved for a reason. So I went with those 2 parameters those were my guidelines. So one of the things that is in chapter 2 or 3 of Letters to Earth, I write, there's 2 problems with the Bible. It's a need-to-know book, and it was written by men who didn't have our technology. We got a problem here. You know? No argument. Still, let's look at the information. When you read their eating of this fruit,
right,
this proverbial fruit, something happens.
Yeah.
They go from the state of alpha, where our brain vibrates from 8 to 12 cycles per second, into the state of beta, which is where the operating system that we use most of the time now, which is above 12 cycles per second. And we know this by the account, because after they ate the fruit, they realized they were naked. They became embarrassed. They covered themselves. Wait a minute. When you're making love to your most dearest person, typically you're naked.
Yes.
And you're good with it.
Yeah.
You know, and you're in a state of alpha because love happens in alpha. But now what happens? All of a sudden they hear the voice of God and they become afraid and they hide themselves. There is the fight and flight syndrome. That response only is available to us in the beta state of mind. So we can look right there and say, hey, the Earth's being beta tested, or the people on Earth are being beta tested. We're given free will. We've been taken out of the constant state of love, and we're put into a place of fight or flight, and we can create fear in others because we have free will. And then you wonder why you have a disaster here? To make it worse, you look at the account in Genesis 3:15. It says, God says to the serpent, whoever the serpent was, I will put enmity between your seed and the woman's seed, indicating that there are two different genetic strains now.
Yeah.
What's up with that? Was that part of our reptilian background that makes the rulers of this planet so cold-hearted they're willing to sacrifice millions at a clip in a world war?
Well, God did that many times.
Now, well, wait a minute. Let's take a look at this. You bring up a good point, Rob. You're 100% correct. When you look at the wars that God carried out through the nation of Israel, all of those wars were to stamp out Molech and Baal worship. Molech worship. You go look up the Star of Molech on your computer. All the listeners, you're listening to this on a computer, go look up the Star of Molech. And then do its research, because in Acts, the 7th chapter, verses 42 and 43, the disciple Stephen is standing before the Jewish high court, the Sanhedrin, and he quotes the prophet Amos, and he says, was it to me, O Israel, to whom you worshipped those 40 years in the wilderness? No, it was to the tent of Molech and to the star of the god Raphan, to whom you made idols and offered sacrifices to. And for that I will send you far beyond Babylon. Now, interestingly enough, those Molech worshippers in the first century were gathered up and taken back to Rome. Now think about this, because this is where this starts our modern day history. Those Molech worshippers bought their way out of slavery, most of them by the end of the first century. Those Molech worshippers then became part of the indigenous personnel or population within Europe. Those Molech worshippers somehow joined forces with the church to go back during the Crusades and then dig up what their ancestors had buried when Titus came in and razed the city to the ground.
Oh, Peter, you bring up a lot of good points, my friend, but you and I have to take a commercial break. We'll be right back. Wow. Exonation, Peter Kling is my guest. www.peterkling.com. This is the X-Zone. I am Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, live and around the world on the Starcom Radio Network. Check out Ed Till, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. until 5 p.m., the way radio is meant to be. Only on one place, right here on the Starcom Radio Network. Peter Kling and I return after this short break. Don't go away. The new nonfiction book, Razor of Madness, is similar to cult movies like Clockwork Orange, Dragon's Tattoo, or The Other Side of Hell. Wayne Morin Jr. and Thomas Lee Howe will expose widespread and systematic deficiencies in this thought-provoking tell-all novel. Mind control rages among scholars in law schools. Human rights are ignored while thought reform and mental manipulation are accepted practices used as behavior modification. Dr. Louis Jolyon West comes to mind. Media and public scrutiny shows that United States mental hospitals are in fact destructive murder industries. Razor of Madness expose novel details this epidemic through an in-depth professional and personal investigation. For decades, there has been a revolving door policy that still releases killers and pedophiles back into society. The maestro of mind control continues to haunt America to this very day. Razor of Madness is available in paperback or as a downloadable ebook at Amazon.com. If you enjoy reading a good mystery with a touch of the paranormal, then you'll love From Out of the Woodwork by William S. Peckham. Sean Kennedy, a Toronto contractor, buys derelict houses, guts them, and turns them into multi-family dwellings. When Sean buys 29 Livery Lane, a century house in ruins, and starts the renovation, the house fights back. He is visited by ghosts of owners past. His visions are triggered by touching an oak mantle, reading a faded letter, opening an old locket, or opening a brand new casket in the basement. These visions will take you on a trip across southern Ontario from Niagara Falls to Toronto to Kingston. From Out of the Woodwork is now available in paperback and on your favorite electronic reader. To order your copy of From Out of the Woodwork, go to www.williamspeckham.com. That's www.williamspeckham.com. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Modern Esoteric, Beyond Our Senses by Brad Olson, consummates the lifeology story about where humanity originates. It is the lost continents, the primitive wisdom, the mythos of creation, and the rethinking of ancient history as we are taught in academia. There is much more to the story than what we have been told. As this is the first book in the Esoteric series, Modern Esoteric starts at the beginning of time and accelerates up to this modern age. Future Esoteric is book 2 in the series and takes a forward-looking position ahead of today with an open and honest examination of the ET issue and various unexplained phenomena. To discover the writings of author Brad Olson, visit www.bradolson.com. That's www.bradolson.com.
Hi, this is Ken Elliott. When I'm floating around the universe, I always try to tune in to Rob McConnell.
Hi, ho there, Timothy Frog on Sesame Street. When I want to find out what's going on with UFOs or ghosts, I listen to the X Zone with Rob McConnell.
This is Les Corrigan from Target Internet Development. You're listening to Rob McConnell on the X Zone Radio Show.
This is John Hogue, Prophecy Scholar, and you're listening to Rob McConnell in the X Zone.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome back, everyone. Peter KLING is my special guest of this hour here on the X Zone. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and around the world on the Starcom radio network. We're going to be having a few changes here in the X Zone over the next couple of weeks. Changes that you, the X Zone members, are going to love. That's all I can say about it right now, but you'll notice them bit by bit as we slowly integrate into, well, I'm going to share a few things with you. 3 more networks. That's right, 3 more networks, more affiliates. We're growing thanks to you, the members of the Worldwide X Zone Nation, and of course to guests like Peter KLING, who just brings so much to the show. And Peter, I can't thank you enough for all the years that you've been with us.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right, Peter, let's get back to the seriousness of discussing extraterrestrials who created us. And where is the missing link? What happened? There seems to be a jump in our evolution. Something is missing. And is this where you think that the manipulation or the hijacking of our DNA took place?
Well, not exactly.
Okay.
If you look at the fossil record, and here again, let's look at what we say.
Okay.
And you kind of have to almost ignore what academia says, because academia has replaced the church in not wanting us to know the truth. Only academia can't burn us at the stake. The only thing that they can do is saddle kids with loans.
Oh, gosh, yeah, isn't that the truth?
Yeah, and so they're the ones that are responsible for keeping our true history hidden. A good example of that is the Sphinx. You go and you look at what the world-renowned Egyptologist Zaharie Hawass says, and it's all a lie. And Dr. Arbit Shak, a geologist, proved it a lie just by doing one simple experiment, and that was looking at the erosion on the side of the Sphinx. And he dates the Sphinx based on the erosion to 7,000 to 15,000 years ago.
And what was it the Minister of Antiquities said the age of the Sphinx was?
Well, they're dating it to Khufu, I believe it is, as who built the Sphinx, because that's who they believe his face is on it. But when you look at the Sphinx, the head is disproportionate to the body, which leads one to question that it was maybe originally a lion.
That's
and
true.
Now, here's another question, and this is, I love my mother. She's one of the most intelligent people that I know. She's getting up in age, and there's this question that I've had. So literally today, I happened to give her a call, and I said, "Ma, do you know the answer to this? Because I can't remember it. Not that I ever knew it to begin with." And it went back to the woman's seed, where Abraham is taken out of Samaria. He lived in the city of Ur, which was one of the most advanced cities on the planet at the time. It was the premier place to be. It was like Abu Dhabi or Dubai. Okay? That's what Ur was like. So God says, hey, you, how about taking your whole family and going and becoming a Bedouin and live like nomads for the rest of your lives? And if you do that in this certain part of the world, which we know as the Holy Land, I'll make sure your descendants inherit that land as a permanent. This whole area will be your descendants. Before he may have lived in a very nice luxury apartment or house within the city of Ur. But because of his faith and the relationship there, he packs up and he leaves one of the most premier cities in what was the empire of Nimrod, the heart of Samaria, and he goes and he lives in the wilderness in what is now Israel. But they the whole family winds up in Egypt for almost 400 years, and they start off as royalty virtually, because Joseph, when you read the account, Joseph is the second in command of all of Egypt. Only Pharaoh has more power than Joseph. And so he settles his family in Lower Egypt, where the plains of the Giza Plateau is. They live in the land of Goshen. And Upper Egypt is where the ruling class was. But yet, the land of Goshen is where the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid of Giza is. And it's interesting, when you read the account in Exodus, when the sun goes dark, all of Upper Egypt is in total darkness, but it says that the houses in Lower Egypt, or the houses of the Israelites, they had illumination. Really? What was keeping their houses alight for 3 days? Could it have been light bulbs generated from the Great Pyramid of Giza? Don't know. That record isn't there. Just that they had illumination while all of Upper Egypt was in total darkness.
Well, isn't there proof, Peter, that there have been batteries that were invented way back when, and that they did have lights way back then? And it seems that there was a lot of lost technology for one reason or another, and we're just finding this now.
Yeah, Rob, they found an ancient piece of iron. Well, it was a piece of metal. It was an axe head, as I recall, in China, which had metallurgy so far advanced that modern technology couldn't figure out what metals were in there. My guess is that it probably came from a meteorite, and they banged it out, and they had the technology to turn it into a fantastic blade that was rust-proof. Lasted 4,000 years, I think it was dated, 4,000 to 6,000 years old. You know, one of my favorite books, and it's not part of the Bible, and here, if you haven't read it, there's 3 books you should read. But don't bother reading the Bible. Try to read the whole thing, because you're not going to understand it. Read Letters to Earth, and read the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch is totally congruent with the Scriptures, except it gets into the interdimensional side of this, where it gets into the Watchers and the Nephilim, and the different dimensions that actually exist. And maybe that's one of the reasons it was left out. People have asked me, why is the book of Enoch been left out of the Bible? My answer is because once you get to the book of Enoch, you never read the rest of the Bible. You get stuck there. When you read what Enoch says, when he was taken, the account says that he was visited by two life forms who had the ability to turn from the form of fire into the form of man and back to the form of fire. Mm-hmm. And when he was taken, they were in the form of fire, and they were not in a spacecraft. Or at least it doesn't seem that way. Not until they get to the Crystal City, as it's being recorded. And the Crystal City has the same basic dimensions as what's given in Revelation. So that's heavenly Jerusalem. So come on, you read that. It's great sci-fi at the very least. But yet, Peter, the Apostle Peter, mm-hmm. and Jude, the brother of Jesus, both quoted from the Book of Enoch. So it was a well-known book. Jesus never quoted from it. So that's one of the reasons that they say it was left out, because Jesus never quoted from it. But no doubt he read it. It would have been a book that his family would have learned in their local temple, in their shul.
I often wonder what was taken out of the Bible at the Council of Nicaea.
Yeah. I wonder what they're keeping under secure guard, lock and key, and can only be seen by the Dead Sea Scrolls Society.
Yeah, talk about a conspiracy. Talk about a cover-up. My Lord, here's a real one that we know is true.
Yeah, the Dead Sea Scrolls are under more tight security than Fort Knox. That's not far from the truth. I mean, it's barely an exaggeration, and it's only open to a closed society who will only release certain pieces of information to those who have the authority to know it. Peter, wait a minute.
In your opinion, Peter, what do you hypothesize that are in the Dead Sea Scrolls that keep them so secure?
Information about our future, information about our past, how we were once perfect, and the powers that we once had, and the powers that we will once have again. You look at the things that Jesus did. He had perfect DNA, and he had the spirit of the multiverse. The whole entire multiverse was with him. Mm-hmm. And when you examine fractal technology, again, hello, Einstein, when you examine fractal technology, we now know that we can look at one tree and tell the whole health of the forest. And indeed, we are fractals of the very being we call God. And we know this based on the singularity of all, you cannot destroy energy, mm-hmm.
And
all energy being pure dynamic stuff. So at one time, if you took all of the energy, if you look at what it says in Revelation, it says God in His own voice, or Yahweh or Yahuwah in its own voice mm-hmm. says, "I am the Alpha and I am the Omega. Nothing existed before me, and nothing will exist after me." That's event horizon to event horizon. According to M theory, which sprung from string theory, that's a trillion-year trip in this multiverse, or I should say, in this third dimension. A little hard to wrap your mind around. But when you go back to the singularity, where all energy is just pure dynamic energy, it doesn't have any other form, any other shape, the God particle and mass. We know that this energy is conscious. We know that it is intelligent. Just look around ourselves. What we ourselves have invented, created. We indeed are creators. We were made in whose image? Back to God, back to Yahweh's image.
Let me ask you something, Peter. There's quite a controversy within the religious community whether or not Jesus Christ actually lived. How do you deal with this skepticism?
Very simple. If he didn't live, we're screwed. But here, and guess what? If he didn't die, we're screwed.
Yeah.
Because what Adam had lost, Adam chose. We have no choice in the matter. That's what makes us sinners. And now, sinner isn't somebody who goes out and leads an immoral life. The original meaning for the word sinner was applied to archers. It was an archer who couldn't hit the bullseye. Just a bad archer. No matter how we try, we can never be perfect without perfect DNA. Just that simple. So, inherently, we are sinners because our first ancestor literally made a deal with the devil. Well, what do they say about the power of a woman?
Yes.
So he was seduced into eating the fruit because he didn't want to give up what felt so good. Only he thought, they bought into, hey, you can be God, you can be just like God. What they didn't realize is that they were already gods. They were the creators of their own universe, their own world.
All right. If God is all-knowing, if God is all-being, right? Why then did God allow the serpent to entice the humans into eating the fruit of knowledge?
Now you're going to get into an exopolitical conversation here. Because we're not alone. You see, we all think, it's just God and his angels and everybody's fine and dandy. In Letters to Earth, I bring this out, and you got to look at, okay, what are we dealing with? And in Ezekiel, it refers to this entity we call the devil or Satan as the covering cherub of Eden. Now, why would he have that title? When you look at the fossil record, there's an explosion of life during the Cambrian period that's never been equaled. We've only had extinction level events since then. Where did all that genetic information come from? So you see that there's more out there than what we're being told, and your whole show is based on aliens, Rob.
That's right.
Come on. Get in line, get in the car, and start singing along.
Let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya at the fire. Yes, indeedy.
You stop playing the devil's advocate here, Rob.
Oh, come on, I must.
Absolutely you must. And you see, that's where people start to learn the fine points, because if you didn't play the devil's advocate, we'd all be singing the choir in church, and I have nothing to agree with what religion teaches with the scriptures.
Yeah.
It's all based in Anunnaki religion. There's nothing truthful there. And then academia comes now. Let's go back to the Molech work. Okay. How long do we have, Rob? We have another hour. We have 10 minutes.
We've got about 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
7 minutes. 7 minutes. My producer just said.
I'm going to roll this up real quick.
Okay.
We put the Molech worshippers into Rome. They were taken back as slaves, right?
Yep.
1,000 years later, Rome gets the great idea to go back and secure Jerusalem, the Holy Land. Whatever they fought, whatever the Knights Templar find there, it transforms all of Europe. And they are credited with what? With developing our current banking system. Who controls the banking system today? Pretty much it's the Zionists and the Jesuits. Oh, a lot has changed in 1,000 years, hasn't it?
Not really.
No, not at all. Now, we go to biblical prophecy. We get this whore of Babylon who rides this scarlet-colored wild beast. We have to identify who the scarlet-colored wild beast is. In fact, it's the Zionist political system. We had Netanyahu speaking in Congress here a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Guess what? We've got the Pope speaking in Congress in September. He's going to meet with, now this is interesting, under Jewish timing, or under Hebrew timing, the Jubilee year starts at Yom Kippur, which is the 23rd of September. On the 23rd of September, the Pope will be meeting with the Obama at the White House, kicking off the Jubilee. Then he's going to be meeting with Congress, telling them what to do. Now remember, there's 3 city-states on this planet. The Vatican, the City of Rome, the City of London, and Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is a subject of the Vatican, and if you don't believe so, just look at the way Washington, D.C. is laid out from the Capitol to the Washington Monument to the Pentagon, and then go look at how the Vatican is laid out from St. Peter's Basilica to St. Peter's Square to that fort that sits just to the, when you're facing St. Peter's Basilica, it's just to the right. And why is there an Egyptian obelisk sitting in the middle of what is supposed to be the home of Christ? Ooh, back to Egypt again. You know who the Molech worshippers were? The first Molech was the Egyptian god Set. He was a bisexual or homosexual god that required live child sacrifice. Those were the people who Yahweh was stamping out using the Israeli army prior to when they came into the Holy Land.
I'm sorry, did you say the god's name was Seth?
Set.
Set, I'm sorry.
S-E-T.
Okay.
Or is it S-E-T-H? No, I think it's actually S-E-T. Yeah, Set. S-E-T or S-E-T-H. I forget which one. Look it up. You'll find it.
Yeah.
There actually does make a difference. There's two different gods.
No, because what I was going to say was that Adam and Eve's third child was Seth.
Seth, yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. You see, it keeps on tying back into Egypt, and that's even where the world powers start. Egypt, Assyria, Babylonia, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and then the United States and Great Britain, or Great Britain and the United States. Between the two, we've ruled the seas for the last 200 years, all according to biblical prophecy. And so now here we are on the 25th. The Pope is going to be in the United Nations, and he is going to be blessing the post-2015 development agenda. This is the beginning of the Jubilee. Ooh, when all debts are forgiven, when the clock is supposed to be reset. Of course, the Jews haven't lived under this code for a long, long time, and that's why they were destroyed by the Babylonians back in around 600 BC. It's again why they were destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE, because they weren't keeping the law of Moses, and especially since they rejected the Christ. We're not really under the law of Moses. We're under the law of love now. Now, you asked about the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Yes.
Our future is fantastic. Once this alien rebellion is put down, and those of us who have moved to that state of love, getting back into the alpha state of the mind, away from the hate, away from the fear, away from the fight and flight, and can start living our lives in alpha, connected back to the Creator, loving each other, living the greatest commandment. You see, that already starts putting us on a positive timeline. And it's those people who demonstrate the woman's seed, the woman's genetic side of the house, as opposed to the reptilian or the serpent seed that are trying to kill us all. And so it all ties back in. And so now what we see with the Pope before Congress is the start of Revelation 17 and 18, and indeed the end of religion as we know it. What happens after that? Oh, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords shows up with the armies of heaven. Rob, it's going to be a great alien show, because we're going to see Revelation chapter 9 unfold. Unfortunately, a third of the planet is going to die when it happens. Those people who cannot get out of the beta state of fight and flight, unfortunately, will perish.
Peter, as always, time goes by so fast when I'm with you, my good friend. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, Peter. You'll have to come back very shortly so we can finish this very interesting conversation.
I'm always available.
Peter, take care of yourself, my friend. And,
you too, Rob. Have a great night.
Thanks for everything, Pete. I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Excellent.
I appreciate being here.
All right, buddy. Exonation, Peter Kling has been my guest this hour, www.peterkling.com. Now, when we come back from this break at the top of the hour, I will be joined by Howard Bloom as the X Zone continues. We're right here from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free 800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV. And you can listen to the X Zone 724-365 at www.xzoneradiotv.com. I'll be back on the other side of this short break at the top of the hour as we continue live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada on the Starcom Radio Network.